Hello everybody, my name is Anita Knight. I'm a teacher in New Zealand at a government-run school in Auckland. Welcome to a webinar around getting started on writing legends. I'm really excited to be sharing with you today from 2 points of view. One, I've been an author for some of the content that's inside Writing Legends, and the other point of view is just before New Zealand went into lockdown a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to share Writing Legends with my class and gain a sense of the experience that they were getting and the way that I could utilise it in my teaching. It would be really lovely to hear from you to make sure you're hearing me fine, and I'd love to know where in the world you're coming in from. There's a chat option on the webinar if you don't mind just popping down your location, and that is a fantastic way for me to touch base with you. All right, and we've got quite a big group, over 100 people today, so it's lovely to know there's a lot of interest in this writing program. Fantastic. Oh, I'm glad you can hear me really well. Thank you for that. That's good feedback for me. Lots of New Zealand and Australians I can see coming through. Fantastic. Time of the day is probably great for our Southern Hemisphere schools. Wow, that's awesome. Lovely. Okay. We can also use that chat space from as we get started for you to post any questions that you have. I'll check in with it. Being a bigger group, I may need to wait until the end to get through a few of them. But as we go through, if something pops to mind, please let me know, and we'll be able to hopefully cover all of the queries that you have in our webinar session. All right, let's get started on getting started. Okay, so, oh lovely, it was so good to see all those places coming up on that screen. Thank you so much. All right, so some of you may have logged in and already had a little bit of a play, but that's the place we're going to start with our teacher registration, because there is 2 parts that you can do. You should be able to see my screen and the teacher registering button here. When you go into this part, you're presented with 2 opportunities for login. One is for you to do a normal teacher registration that will be purely inbuilt into the program Writing Legends. The other one, if you have a look down the bottom, is log in with your Google Classroom account. When you want to do it through that way, you would click on that button and follow the prompts that will allow you to select your class or classes and sync with Writing Legends. And I'll show you when we get to the next screen how that will differ from when you're doing it through the built-in login. So if you want to use it, you're set up with Google Classrooms, please click on the button at the bottom of that teacher registration. When I went in, I decided to go in and create user accounts with my students following the top section. So once I had gone in, I was prompted to create a class and add the first name and the last letter of, the first letter of the last name of my students in the class admin section. So you should be able to see my class here. Just checking back. That sounds like we don't have any issues there at the moment. So class admin, and you can see my students have made their avatar down the side once they receive their login details. So by doing it through the program rather than with Google Classrooms, this generated a username and a password. And the passwords are really friendly. They're blue dog 37, words like that and numbers that the students can really connect with and remember, as well as generating that list when I created a class through add class, choosing a name and my year level, and then adding my students' names in. I was able to then retrieve those logins in ways that I could use them. You can download a CSV file, or you can create a ticket like these. So, just giving an idea what it is like when you are creating a class, I'll add a student to my already existing class. So you can see the information that I had already put in. You can see you can copy and paste names from a spreadsheet. So I popped my students' names in, and then I want to add a new student. So I go down here and I'm going to put in Sarah T and submit. So Sarah T is now being added to my class. I scroll down, she won't have an avatar yet. And there she is in her generated login. All right, now how does this differ from when you're in Google Classrooms and you've registered that way and synced your class? So your students don't need a Writing Legends username and password because they already have their Google account login. And so they can sign straight into Writing Legends using that, and therefore there would not be a generated one here on the class admin page. Okay. Hopefully those are the questions that you may have had around logging in and the two options that you have. So what we'll do now is we'll start to head towards what it's like to get the kids up and running with their first writing activity. Just check in and see if there's a couple of questions here. I'll just double check on. If you teach 2 year levels, do you have to create 2 separate classes? No, you don't. We are going to work on the different options that we can provide rather than a single year level in the drop down box. For example, last year I was a year 5-6 teacher, this year a year 6 teacher. The age bracket would stay the same content in the program, and therefore you could choose one, a year 5 or year 6, and put your class down under that for now. So you don't have to create separate classes. You could if you would like to. If you have multi-level classes that span much stronger than 2 levels, more than a composite of year 5-6, for example, it may be a good idea to contact support at Writing Legends and just ask them how to set the best way to set that up. My understanding would be that you would look at your group of children that are younger and older in different brackets and consider setting up a class, so a group of year, say, 4, and then a class of year 6. And you would be able to group them that way. They would then have different content if there's that stretch. Okay, quite a few questions coming through. I'll try my best to keep going with those. There's not much difference in a sense of the year 5-6 mixed class, for example, because the program has set out sort of this bracket or band for sort of year 3-4, 5-6, like that. So you can see that they would be getting a similar, well, they would get the same content to be working on in your class. Fiona, I'm yet to get to the bottom of that question about whether you can add or change Google Classrooms if you have already registered normally. I'm sure support will be able to help you with that. You could go in and see if there's an option, but I don't know what the outcome would be. So hopefully that's a really quick fix for you through a question to support. Yes, this webinar has been recorded, and it will be available to be viewed after this. Okay, yes, the Google Classroom option has only been available more recently than when the program first started out. All right, we'll move on now to first writing activity. So the page that you can see now is my teacher homepage. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log out and I'm going to sign in as a student that I created. So when I used the program to create my class, I made a sample student. This is very easily achieved the way that I added in Sarah the student. However, if you are using it through Google Classrooms, you would actually have to create a sample student in your Google Classroom for it to be able to sync across to Writing Legends. All right, so I'm now in my own student sample, Anita K, and this is my school in Auckland. My homepage looks very similar to the teacher homepage in the fact that for a 2-week period, 4 quick writing activities and 1 full write experience are appearing on my screen. And they change every 2 weeks. Any that had been achieved or started in the prior couple of weeks, you can click back and you can still see those. and you can move forward to the ones that are available for these 2 weeks. Getting started and giving the students a little bit of freedom around this front page is encouraged by me. I found that my students were really motivated to have choice, and having 4 quick write options meant that choice was available, and then also there was the full write to get our teeth into a little bit more and have extended periods of writing. So your first writing experience would be possibly working from this front home page, not setting tasks, of which you can do in your teacher dashboard, and not necessarily narrowing down the choices. Although it's wonderful to generate writing around one particular topic quite early on, so the students can be part of your community of authors and doing some sharing around a similar writing activity. You can see that there is an orange tick at the top of Cynthia, and there is a blue tick on the cabin. So these ticks indicate writing that I have started already, and the blue tick, this is a completed task. Now, the student, and you have available to show these to your class as well, the students have some tools that can really help with motivation and giving them some direction on some styles of writing they might like to achieve through these writing activities. And that's done through a sample and a podcast. So if we have a look at Shocking Secret here, and I'll click on the activity so you can see the prompt. So it's about starting a brilliant story, having a brilliant story opening, and the prompt is very simple, about the shocking secret. And you're trying not to tell the whole story in that first part, but really sparking curiosity. So what's quite cool for the students to also see is that there are trending words that are around other writers are using, who are doing this in other schools and around the world, and they can see little snapshots of other authors, student authors who are writing. So it's very motivating. So getting back to the samples, so you can see them through here or the front page. If I click on the writing document, it gives me some written sample responses, and the students can actually get a sense of how it can be interpreted in different ways. Short and sweet, some with dialogue. So there's 1 to 3 samples for them to look at. What is also available is the podcast.
Hey everyone, this activity is called A Shocking Secret.
The aim is to write the opening paragraph to a story titled The Shocking Secret.
I had a lot of fun writing this activity. Do you want to start with your story, Michael?
Sure, I actually need a little bit of help with this one. Could you be Kiara and I'll be Will?
Yeah, sounds good. Why would you tell me something like that, Will?
I thought you could keep secrets, Kiara. I just had to tell someone. Get the weight off my shoulders, you know.
Yeah, but now I've got that weight on my shoulders for no reason.
Look, I'm sorry. I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
That big of a deal? Will, if this gets out, you could get the entire school shut down.
Wait, actually?
Yeah, of course. You let the lab rats out. I really hope Mr. Henry doesn't hear about this.
Will, Kiara, can I speak to you for a second? Oh, dear.
You've written this in such a creative way, Michael. Well done.
Thanks. I thought it'd be really fun to write it as a script, with the opening paragraph being instead the opening scene.
Yeah, it works well, and I really love how you've left it on a cliffhanger.
Okay, so you can hear both the sample being read out, but also the narrators discussing the writing. And so again, it's generating that feeling of what authors go through in a writing process, and how, and then the students being able to connect with their own ideas around the writing process. Okay, I'm just going to check on questions. I think I'll keep going and come back to some of those soon. All right, so we've just had a quick look at how we can have some options for the student and then to get started on their writing. So when they want to get started, they can click on Let's Get Started. They get a prompt of, it's a 10-minute activity. It doesn't matter if you don't finish on time, but they're welcome to carry on. The time does tick down, and then it opens it up for them to continue writing. They begin and they given a familiar area of where you would type with some basic tools at the top. So when they're writing, there's time for them to, I'll just pop something in here. Right, and so I might want to look at changing something in there. I can use a tool, such as if I wanted to highlight thought and go up to thesaurus, I can see that there's some other options that might give me more impact in my language. So that's a really effective tool that they can use. All right, so that gives you a little bit of a taste of what a quick write and actually getting the students' first writing activity started. They can click on I will finish later. They can click on I'm finished, and then they can come back into it at any stage as well. But the 10 minutes will count down, and they'll know when they're on their own to keep writing past that. So that would be the same as when they go into a full write. Apart from that, the full write offers them more details around planning, drafting, and also revising and editing, and we'll go into that a little bit more when we're viewing the teacher dashboard. Okay, if we go into the portfolio, you can see that the shocking secret has popped up. It was submitted a minute ago, and these are all of the pieces of writing that Anita has achieved. This is my sample student, and the ticks indicate where her teacher has given her feedback. And we get an idea of when she was doing that writing. So we know that, just while I'm in here, I'll just explain one more thing around the choices. I've encouraged you to start off by using those fortnightly or 2-week options on the front screen. There are also additional activities to provide more choice, and you can see them quite well presented here in the student dashboard, where they're organised under the different text types or categories. So when you click on a particular style, you can see some different options to write from. Okay, so just having one more look at the last thing that's on the students' portal, and that's a word wall. So as the students start writing, they start generating language around their writing that is captured in snippets that allows them to see what new words they're generating, what language gems they should be celebrating, and those are available in this section. So new words they've not used in previous pieces of writing and how they've used them, some language gems, adjectives, sophisticated words, some motive words they've been using, terrific alternatives instead of using maybe more common language, and then their attempts at different types of punctuation, and again, little snippets of how they used it. There's also a vocabulary profile that shows them the wording that they are using, and that just keeps getting built upon, and possible spelling mistakes are highlighted in a colour for them to see as well. So the more sophisticated, they may not have used those words often, or they might be more specific terminology will be further down the bottom. So that hopefully gives you an idea of what a student experienced to get them up and going. I'd start on a quick write, a high success, shorter period of writing, and then the teacher can give feedback on that writing. The student can move on to another quick write, or then when they're comfortable, move on to a full write. So we'll move on now to the tour of the teacher dashboard. Before I do that, I'll just see if there's some questions that are a little bit around what we've done now. So the question around the primary school students, the program has, we've got different age groups. If we have a look at when you're setting up your class, and you can choose from, I think it's year 3 upwards. Sorry, my memory's failing me here on what the band is, but they tend to be that middle primary and upper primary age group that are covered. We have got content that we've been writing for older students as well, and I can see that coming into the program in the future. Is there a number of students that can participate at the same time? So no, not in the sense of participating at the same time. You would have to set up separate classes to be able to have 32 names, more than 32 names, which is the maximum on one class set up. But schools can set up for everyone in a school if they wanted to. So we've got a question from Megan about the independent option. So actually, I'm not on this teacher screen at the moment, but So when you set that up, I would leave it on them all on the same while you're getting used to the program. So you've got two options. You can leave them where it's independent toggle off, and that allows you, when you're not doing the quick writes, but this refers to the full writes, that there is a point in time after planning and drafting that the student submits their writing and they wait for a teacher feedback before progressing. If you move the toggle to independent, on, then the student is able to progress through planning, drafting, revising and editing without any pause, and you can still give feedback at any stage, but they can move at their own pace. So the difference between the quick write and the full write, hopefully I'll be able to show you a little bit more when we go into the teacher dashboard. So our quick writes are our 10-minute, approximately 10-minute, let's just get writing, focusing on content, ideas, language, rather than stopping and starting or a lot of critiquing or revising for spelling. And the full write is more of your writing process, where the students are generating pre-writing content in a plan, then moving on to drafting, submitting their draft, then moving on to revising and editing. And coming soon to the program will be some options for publishing. How often do the trending words get updated? Tracy, I do not know. That's a really good question. I can take that back to Shane and his team and ask that about the trending words. How often? Can the program be used for struggling writers? Well, I definitely have had some amazing success with the short period of time that I had my class in front of me. The numbers started to dwindle as we went closer to lockdown. And I actually interviewed some of my children to get some understanding of their experience. Some of my children who have a lot of difficulty with producing writing, their output is challenging, their handwriting, dexterity, etc. is hard work. They said that they just felt the program had definitely given them more freedom, because if they could type and they could reread and they could use tools, they were able to move into their writing with support and feel more fluent. So it was wonderful to see. I do have a couple of children whose screens are not a lot better than paper, and so working alongside them, it still was really important for them, for their support. But absolutely, I've seen some great success with my children who find it so laborious to put pen to paper. So yes, Helen, hopefully I've answered that one about independent. It's just when the student, you've decided to not have a pausing point after planning and drafting to check in with them, that you're allowing them to move at their pace through a full write. Can you set particular genres for your students? Yes, you can. So when you are, and I'll go into the teacher dashboard, I'll be able to show you that there's an option for setting tasks. The students can see on their own dashboard, it comes up with to do. So you could choose a particular text type that or writing activity that you're interested in them doing, and assign that to them. Sharon, at the moment, hopefully some of the tools I'll show in the dashboard may answer part of your question, but the assistive technologies that I think you are specifically looking for may not currently be in the program. The fantastic thing about Writing Legends is that it's evolving with its use. The more feedback that we get from users, the more data we get from student writing, seeing trends, progress, etc., the program can evolve alongside of that. And as a teacher, I'm always very interested in how else the program can support our diverse learners. Right, so the question about Seesaw, embedding the Writing Legends in a Seesaw activity, I wouldn't say that you've got them syncing beautifully at the moment. What I've done in the past, when I was using Storyathon, I was able to, when the students actually generated a little snapshot, which will happen inside Writing Legends, of a background and a published font, I was able to sort of either take a screen grab or a copy of that as an JPEG, and I would upload that into Seesaw and say this was a piece of writing recently created. At the moment, the writing is very easy for the students to copy and take into another program if they want. And as I mentioned, there'll be some publishing options coming into the program in the near future. Does the portfolio still show up in Classroom? Okay, I'm not 100% sure, Gretchen, of your question. The My Portfolio is the students, it shows them what they're working on or have been working on, and when the teacher's given feedback, you also can see it through a Reports and an Activities tab in the Teachers section. Okay, right, so Rebecca, the activities, let's get to that, because the reason that you're not seeing anything in the activities may be because your class hasn't yet generated content, and as soon as they start generating content, you'll start seeing things populated into the activities tab. All right, I'm going to move on now to the tour of the teacher dashboard. So I'll move out of my student sample. And I'm in my teacher dashboard. So you can see the similar front screen as we have for our students' front screen. So you are also able to then share your screen if you're working from home, or if you're in your classroom on your smart board or a television screen, bringing up and sharing the podcast and the samples, the trending words and the snapshots. You can also obviously bring up the writing activities and talk through pre-writing motivational conversations. So if we move to the first tab, and that was what that last question was about regarding activities. So you can see that there are some writing that my students have been doing, and imagine that this just keeps updating with the most recent interaction between of a student writing or a teacher going into that writing at the top of this page. So we were writing before on a shocking secret, and that's come up 12 minutes ago. You can see that Noah from my class wrote 3 hours ago. Good on him and his holiday. And he has a tick next to it because I have already at some stage given him some feedback on his writing. You can see that continues down, and there are all the different tasks that my students are doing. So I sort of work out the top of that, checking and knowing when something new has come through, and your page will look like that too when you get your students writing. So if I click on Noah, you can see where he is up to and the feedback that I've given him. So Noah has written his draft around a holiday disaster in Samoa. He's looked at a checklist about what he's included in his writing, and there's some feedback that I had given him originally. So I can go back in now because he's posted a little bit more, and I could be adding another comment into there now, checking on any changes that he may have made, anything he had added, what he'd done in the sense of my advice that I had given him. And then I'm able to also be adding things like emojis and celebrations. And also I can give him a grade if I have set up a system where my students understand the grade. In my case, I chose stars. I can use them or choose not to use them. I can hide them from the students and keep them in my own dashboard as if I want. So I won't submit that because I want to actually look back at his writing. Just while I'm in here, another thing that is great for you to use to get the kids guided, a little bit more guidance in their writing, they have access to, and you do in the teacher dashboard, is the exemplar. So here is an exemplar of a holiday disaster story, and there are some prompts down the side about particular content, writing techniques, language choice, and structures that have been well presented in this piece of writing. So great teaching tool there. Yep, so I tend to work out the top of that section on activities. The vocabulary we'll just touch on now, but it's very much like what we talked about with the students generating their own language bank, and here it's the same, but it's your whole class. And so you're getting the commonly used words by your class, the unique words being used, the less common words being used. Hopefully, oh, that's popped up now. And then I've got examples that I can look at. Great little indication for me of what students are doing with their language, and then seeing the sentence structures. And I can use those sentence structures to model to my class and know that I'm basing that teaching on their actual the language they're using and the sentence structures that I'm seeing inside their writing. The reports is quite a large aspect of the program, and you can go to all sorts of different parts of Writing Legends through the reports. But just touching on this briefly, you can see the activities, and they tend to go up to the top. If there's one's been worked on recently, the activities are down the side. You can see they're tagged to a specific genre or text type. It shows me the progress of students in my class who have been working on one of these tasks, and then we can move over to the report where we can learn more about what's happening within that particular activity. And the class review I'll show you briefly in a moment. There's also the student report, so you can go in here and actually think child by child. So I have a very motivated student here called Smirty. So if I go in to see what Smirty's been writing, you can see I've been giving her feedback, and the ticks let me know that. And I'm going to go into a quick write that she wrote recently. And I can see that she's written her answer of her quick write. I can see a 10-minute snapshot to see how much she's achieving in that time. And then there was a little bit of feedback that I gave her, plus the celebration. So I can come into her work through the activities or through the reports. Okay, and so again, the reports would be similar to that. If I go into, oh, actually, shocking secret, I haven't got the students writing on that yet. No, so that one is a blank one. So if we go into this one here, the holiday disaster, I can get more information about the status of where my students are at, how long they've been working on a task, and that's writing time. Then the word count, and then I can also close or set a task so that that would come up as a to-do for certain children who haven't already started it in this case. And then I can review their response or their writing activity through this. Okay. So class review, that's what I wanted to take you to. So that's one of the other options in reports. And this is a fantastic teaching tool where you're able to show them the prompt, say in a pre-writing discussion, those trending words. And this is where your class, once they get started, generates language that you can share and celebrate. So you can see that we have a word cloud being generated here, and you can see what and all the spelling, the content, etc., is giving a bit of a hint to what they're writing about. And then I have individual responses down the bottom. I can choose to show the names of the authors in my class or hide them. And I can flick through these. In my class, I've done some things where the students are working on their writing, and I've just read out a fantastic treasure phrase or sentence, and the students will sort of stop and turn, and one will say, hey, that's what I've been writing. And they see that I'm in real time keeping up with what they're doing and celebrating alongside them. So really powerful tool, the individual responses, when you've set that up. And as I said, you can keep names out of that. You can look at just the starters of how people have all started as they've written. So a really powerful tool, the class review. That brings us back to our class admin, which is where that independent toggle is. And then when you go to profile, this is where you can set up a grading system. And you would need to make decisions on what works for your class and whether you want the students to view that, or that's an indication that you've got in your own report portal only. Okay, so that's sort of commencing what the agenda was for today. So I'm just going to go back to the questions and see how well I can answer those. We've gone over time, so I do understand if anyone has to shoot off to other responsibilities, but I'll stay on for a little bit longer and see if I can get through some more of the questions. Okay, so Kieran, you have a question there about, is the site down at the moment? As far as I know, I haven't been on in the last sort of 2-hour period, apart from what you've seen me using online here. So I haven't actually been going into critique work, etc., or set a task or anything like that. My understanding is no, but I also know that in the full rights, we are giving it a bit of a tweak and polish to make the experience more fluent for the student and freer options for the teacher, and run smoother. So there could be some complications that you've experienced that could be around the programmers being on it right now. I've just got a message that my screen, my network's a bit unstable, so I hope you're all hearing okay. How do you give the teacher feedback for the quick write? So when I go into the activities page, such as here, let's see one that's a shopping set. We'll go into the one that we just started, although there's not a lot of generated content. So this was a quick write, and imagine that Anita had written for her 10 minutes or more on there. I would go in here and I would go, well done, Anita, I love how you have hooked the reader in with such a great start. Well, it's not the best feedback I've ever given, but we'll see how we go. I can also give emojis to set things going, and then I would submit that so that it would appear for the child. If working in a team situation, can you have more than one teacher in the class? Yes, you can. Again, using each person's situation can be a little different. So again, using support at Writing Legends would be good to ask some of those questions on your own situation. You can share your teacher registration login, so both teachers can go in and if they want to leave their name as they give feedback, that's one way of doing it. It does become a little bit more complicated with Google Classrooms unless teachers are set up already that way, and then the same thing would be in place for Google, we're using Google Classrooms. Megan, yep, great about turning independent off or keeping it on. Just be aware that those little tweaks to the independent toggle off process for students, where there's a pause and time for the student to wait for feedback before moving on, is just getting polished by our programmers at the moment. One of the things I found was that it's a really good point of the students to pause straight after their drafting, so that we really emphasise their content and ideas rather than constantly giving feedback around spelling mistakes or ways to restructure something that and that more revising and editing. But instead we focus on making sure what's there has huge impact first before we start working on those other aspects. Can teachers select, say, persuasive task only? So when you have, through the reports, you can choose it, and we're just going to make it a bit more clear like it is in the student portal, where you'd go into one of the persuasive writing tabs, and you would choose a piece that is persuasive, tagged as persuasive, and make that a set task for them. Can you keep copies of their drafts as they move on throughout the writing? That's a fantastic idea, Fiona. It may be a possibility for the program to evolve so that it keeps, and then it brings it down again and brings it down again, so it captures. At this point, it doesn't, unless you were wanting to, I'm going to capture that myself and copy that out, and copy and paste that for me because I want to see. But I tend to give them the feedback and then see their writing again and I'm able to either remember, or I'll look at my feedback and say, hey, I can see some of the things I've included in my feedback have been added, or gosh, that's a bit longer now in the word count. But that's a fantastic tool, and wouldn't it be great if we continue as users of the program to make suggestions like that so that we can keep evolving it. So there is a teacher feedback section that you might like to use inside Writing Legends now. Is there an option to have read and write, or options to speak rather than type? Not at this point, Jody. Again, a fantastic task. I was working with my students on text to speech, and I would love to have that too. Again, make a suggestion. I'm not sure the capabilities of bringing that in, because as soon as you're bringing in such a big component, it has quite a heavy load on programs. But very, very much, something I would think would be ideal as well. Anyone else unable to access the site at the moment? Okay, so Kieran, you're having some issues there, and I will go back in and see if I can have a play around. But from what I've gathered from just going in and typing into the program at the moment, in the parts that I've been into, it's up and going. So I'm not sure about the lack of access. Does the program assess the writings made by students? No, you're the top dog in that case. So you're going to be going in and giving feedback to assess them, but you can set up a grading system that works with you in your class so that they understand why they've got 4 stars for something. You might set criteria before they start writing. You might use the checklist for why they're getting a particular grade. How to set a task. Okay, so as I mentioned, when you get started, please remember how important it is for students to have choice and to be motivated to write, and choosing between things like the quick writes, and start them on a quick write. When I want to do a set task, and I haven't actually been setting tasks, so this is quite a new area for me. If I was in the holiday disaster, where quite a few of my children have already written, but some didn't write it, and I want Aiden to be writing next a holiday disaster narrative, I would click set in there, and that would come up on his front student dashboard to show a to-do holiday disaster. Sharon, yes, so that's a little bit of a new one. I think I sort of half answered it before. Students voice type on the program. If you can get it to do that, that's amazing. It's something I can go back to Shane and the team and ask that question as well. So around voice type, but I suppose we'd be wanting sort of 2 programs to be sort of syncing together. Yes, the program certainly, Lynn, can be done on an individual basis if the child is being homeschooled. Absolutely. I presume with support at Writing Legends, you would be able to have a parent log in as a teacher registration in a way that they may like to set it up so that it's done securely, and not sort of done separately to schools, be a homeschool sort of setup, and then be able to get the students to do that. I know that Shane and his team are looking at a home option for parents to be able to use the program different than the schools, so that may be something that you'll see in the future. I'm just reading yours, Sally. Okay, I don't quite know the answer to your question. I would say you would definitely be able, I see what you're meaning, they're all in one class. Now, I think you should be able to sync your Google Classroom over as it stands, and it's the 32 maximum is when you're creating classes within the program that may be the restriction. Hopefully I've got that right and your syncing would come over. I presume if that's not the case, you may have to ask for support on that. Okay, hopefully Adam, I've answered your question around giving feedback on a child's writing. So with a quick write, you would click on the quick write and you would be able to, like the shocking secret, You would read their writing, that's our little sample one, and you would give feedback below. Now, I've already given that feedback. I can go back in again. A goal for you, and I could keep going and add to that at some stage as well, if I wanted to, but with quick writes it tends to be that one dip in by the student and one dip in by the teacher to give feedback. No, you cannot organise folders on the activities page. It's done in sort of chronological order, so it gets higher up. The activities are the most recent ones, so that you're sort of working out the top and you're seeing what's recently come through by your class. And I didn't start working there. I started in the reports and going through it that way, but I've actually found it, I'm keeping on top of things. I know I've got a lighter load at the moment, but working from the top of the activities. But you can go into the reports where you're more organised by, I want to look at a child's writing and this particular piece of writing, or I want to look at this writing activity and everyone's piece of writing, and that might answer your question around making folders. Is the checklist automatically generated? Jody, yes it is. We want to keep tweaking those to make sure that they are better matched to each of the writing activity. And we would love to think that in the future, teachers might be able to go in and make a choice of what checklist content would be there. But that at the moment, they are automatically generated for students to look through and get a sense of, have I started with that hook? Have I considered looking at my punctuation? Have I ended with a closing, like an ending that ties everything up? So the checklist, Helen, is only attached to the full writes. And so when a student goes into a full write, and this is the bit that's the process is getting polished by the programmers at the moment to make it run a bit more smoothly. You can see that I've gone into Noah's writing that he did, and this is a checklist he sees once I've moved him on from planning and drafting to the revising and editing stage. However, if he was on independent toggle on, when he moved himself to revising and editing, he would get that checklist too. Megan, I would love to answer your question about Google Classrooms and the syncing. I would definitely contact support at Writing Legends because I don't run through Google Classrooms. I use Hapara here in New Zealand, so I'm not as au fait with that. Apologies for not helping you on that. Yes, their work will be able to be printed off with teacher feedback included, Diane. And when we add the publishing mode to the program, that's when you'll be able to see those options. Alexandra, I don't have a sample account I can quickly give you. However, if you would like to log in as a teacher, register yourself in Writing Legends, and then if you create a class and just put one student in that class, and then you would be able to set that up and show them and then generate and a piece of writing in there as a student would probably be my recommendation at this point. Okay, so Helen, just watch the space around the plan and draft and review and publish. So that's the bit that's just getting streamlined at the moment. So the students, the thinking behind it is when the student is moving on independent mode, toggle on, so they're independent, they will move through and you can go in at any point. So when they push I'm finished drafting, they would move on to the next stage. You would see in the status in the report that they've moved on. They're not in the drafting point anymore, that they're over in the what's currently called review and publish. And then you would be able to go in at the end as well when they've submitted and it comes up that they have completed, and you would also be able to go in at that point if you wanted to. Where it's that sensitive line between structuring it so teachers have to do certain things and keeping it free enough that teachers can go in as many times as they want. And that is actually a really hard thing to achieve. So we've taken some feedback recently from our beta version and the work that we've been doing with our students and trying to fine-tune that. So we're going to be planning and drafting, revising and editing, and then soon coming a publishing option. And you'll be able to go in at each point. But the thinking behind it is that after plan and draft, any student with independent toggle off would have a stop, wait for teacher feedback, so that you can give them feedback on their ideas and draft ideas around in their draft. Do you use this for your complete writing program? No, Rebecca, I don't. I've only had a small period of time using the program before I went into lockdown. So beautiful to see that my students are still using it in their holiday time, which is fantastic, and it shows me that that motivation is there. I do have traditional handwritten lessons. I'll give you a perfect example of that. My students in their books, and we don't have enough devices for everyone on it at the same time, so my students were writing in their books a recount of the best holiday ever. And then when they were on writing legends, they had to write under the prompt, the holiday disaster, so that we could look at how we would change the language to be these positive connotations and negative connotations in what we're writing, and the kind of drama that we would put into each type of piece. So I find that it's, I do get dictated by my devices that I have in the classroom and the access to them. And so I also value trying to get students to do different writing tasks on paper and complement it with this program as well. I love the idea of giving them some direction, such as writing the holiday disaster, but then giving them the freedom of choosing from one of the quick writes. Best tip I can give a student. Value the ideas and the creativity that you have inside you, so that you get, that's what matters the most, is that comes out in your writing. And probably the second one would be around listen to your inner voice and let it come out as a character in your story or as a persuasive point of view. Really listen to your voice and craft it into your writing. I'm glad to see that people are loving it. The class response cloud's great. Yes, I agree. It is free to use for term 2. There is a banner at the top when you go straight into the very first page, Tracy, that will tell you a little bit about costings around the program. It does look amazing, and I'm just so excited that when I do talk with Shane and learn about what they are currently doing to the program to evolve it, it's just going to get better and better for our use. And remember, when the data that the students generate gets in there, we have more wording, more sentence structures, more paragraphs available for us to understand what's trending in student writing, what makes a student sophisticated in their writing, what is the language choices students are making at a particular age. So it's very exciting from a sort of statistics point of view too. Hopefully the set of tasks that's come up a little bit there, I realise that the questions go, and we had quite a lot more to go, and I'm quite over time now and getting a lot of unstable network messages coming up, which scares me a little bit. With the step task, since that's come up lots of times, when you go into the reports section here, you can see that, for example, I went into the holiday disaster. Oh, sorry, my mistake, not there. Over here, I can set a task. There may be a difficulty for some of you trying to set a task on one of the pieces that is currently on the 2-week window. I know there was some complication around that, and so we're trying to get that right so that, or anyone, whether it's a current one or just some of the previous ones, but if it's current, if it's up in the 2 weeks, I suppose the setting of the task may be as simple as saying to the students, this is what I want you to do from the current homepage. All right, although there are quite a few more questions to go, I think I've covered quite a few of them. Oh, and I'm glad, Karen, awesome, you're back working fine. That's fantastic to see. I'm just jumping down to see if there's anything that's I've missed that's not been covered already. I think, Sherilyn, you can change the year level of your class after you've created it by editing the class. Yes, the video will be shared. Yes, we will have to introduce this to our classes remotely, and I was fortunate to have a little bit of time with my children, although their numbers kept dwindling in those last few days where we would be doing this. And so with programs like Zoom available, we are able to share our screens, and hopefully you will have the opportunity to be guiding the students through it by sharing a screen. You can make slideshows using, say, screenshots into a slideshow if you wanted to give them steps to work through as well. So there's a couple of tips using slideshows to put a little presentation together, or getting online and seeing if you can have a team meeting with them. Suggesting where you begin, I would set up their passwords, and I would ask them to choose from the 2 weeks in front of them on the home page. You might say, I want you to do Cynthia the crocodile quick write, and just focus on that one task, that 10 minutes, and give them some feedback, and then be maybe emailing them or Zoom to say, I've gone in and given you feedback. Can you go back in? Can you check? And can you read the points I've made? And I'd start at that point. Quick writes first before moving into full writes. Do you think younger children will be able to participate with an adult typing for them? I do want to answer that question. I can't remember if I've already spoken about it today, but you may well be able to definitely use it that way, possibly set up in a different class scenario. But what I think would be really cool too would be using the program to model the writing process to younger children. So looking at a writing activity and getting the students to do a shared writing task with you, and putting that writing in under one of the tasks and one of the activities. Then going back into it and saying to them, hey, what feedback would we give this when we look back at a piece of writing? Or putting another piece of writing up and reading it with the younger children and saying, what feedback do we give someone to help improve their writing? So hopefully it could be done as like modelling what people do, what authors do when they plan and they draft and they revise, they edit, or they write to get their ideas down, but they don't have to finish necessarily, like a quick write. So there's some ways for it to be used more as modelling for younger children and shared writing. Hopefully that's some help, Estelle. Okay, well, look, I really have enjoyed spending some time with you, and hopefully I've answered enough of your questions. And I'm sure that if you would like, there's a website, a Facebook page for Writing Legends. You should be able to find a support available through your teacher tips when you go in and look at that in the start of the program as well. And maybe I will see you again sometime here on a webinar. We're doing some more around effective writing strategies within the program. So enjoy, and hopefully stay safe, stay strong, and hopefully we'll be back with our little ones face to face, not too distant future.